And welcome everyone. As we begin our council meeting June 3rd, 2024 at 6 p.m. And welcome those that are in the gallery with us and those that are participating from home, and welcome our staff and members of council. Deputy Mayor is not able to attend this evening, and we will begin with our Okanda, please. All rise. And again, welcome everyone. We just asked everyone to make sure that their phones are on mute or turned off. And we'll begin our meeting with our land acknowledgement. And as we gather, we are reminded that the municipality of South Huron is situated on Treaty 29 land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history and home to First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people today. And as a community, we have a responsibility to honor and respect this territory's significance for the Indigenous peoples who lived, continue to live upon it, and whose practices and spiritualities were tied to the land and continue to develop in relationship to the territory and its other inhabitants today. In the spirit of reconciliation and truth, we acknowledge the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee peoples on whose traditional territory we are meeting. And welcome to a bunch of youth that are here just joined us now. It's good to see everyone up tonight. And I'll turn to Ms. Masula Collison for our item number 2, please.
That South Huron Council approves the agenda as presented.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Oak, second by Councillor Neeb. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 6. Disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Are there any disclosures? Mr. Neeb, go ahead, please.
I have 2. Item 9.4.1, Ford municipal drain tender. The general nature being that part of the Ford drain is on my parents' property. And item 14.1, Avon-Maitland District School Board meeting highlights. I'm an employee of the Avon-Maitland District School Board, so when either of those items come up, I'll be stepping out of the meeting.
Thank you for that. Are there any other disclosures at this time? Not seeing any. Thank you. We'll move on to our presentation. Welcome, Mr. Mascarin, joining us on Zoom tonight. Mr. Mascarin, good to see you. How are you?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Great. Please proceed whenever you're ready.
Terrific. Mr. Mayor, with your permission, I do have a PowerPoint deck, and I'll try to be succinct about it tonight, but if I could, I'd like to share my screen and bring it up. So if I could do so, I'll just call it up now. And please let me know if you can see the screen. It should say Code of Conduct and Role of the Integrity Commissioner.
Yes, we see it very clearly.
Terrific. Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is John Mascarin. I'm a municipal lawyer with Aird & Burles in Toronto. Aird & Burles LLP is your integrity commissioner. We bid for the work, I think, Rebecca can probably correct me, but I think it was 7 years ago when the county issued an RFP and allowed its local municipalities to join in. So we were selected by the county through a public procurement process, and we were selected by all of the local municipalities. All of them except for Goderich have stayed with us. And we have renewed, I believe, with a number of municipalities, including the county, twice now. So I'm hoping that we can continue on with you. I have tonight a short presentation on both the Code of Conduct and the role of the Integrity Commissioner. So I will, without further ado, go into it. The Code of Conduct. As you probably know, every municipality in Ontario must have a Code of Conduct. When it was first put in place in the Municipal Act in 2006, it was permissive. A municipality could enact a code of conduct, but it didn't have to. That was all changed by Bill 68 in 2018 that required, as of March the 1st, 2019, every municipality in Ontario needed to have a code of conduct that would regulate the behavior, the ethical conduct of its members of council and members of local boards. And you'll see section 223.2 is the requirement that's in the Municipal Act. So you have one. We drafted it for you. We drafted it for all of the Huron County municipalities, and you have one that's in place. And I'll talk about it in just one moment. Many people ask me, is a code of conduct a policy or is it a bylaw? And my answer is it's actually neither of those. It occupies a space somewhere in between. So, is it a policy? No. What do you think a policy typically is? A policy is typically a guideline, something that you should try to adhere to. A code of conduct is not that. You must comply with the code of conduct. So, my view, it's not something that's as loose, as flexible, as malleable as a policy. If it was a mandatory policy, the provincial government would have required it under Section 270 of the Municipal Act, where it requires all other policies. Now, is it a bylaw? Well, just think about it. A bylaw can create an offense for anybody who contravenes it, and that person, if they're guilty, can be convicted of a provincial offense. That is not true for a code of conduct. In fact, there's an exculpatory clause that says a bylaw cannot provide that a member who contravenes a code of conduct is guilty of an offense or is required to pay an administrative monetary penalty. So my view is, even though it has to be adopted by bylaw, as all municipal acts have to be done by bylaw, resolution, or as otherwise specified, it is not either of those. It occupies its own unique position. Now, what is it though? And now Gregory Levine in Municipal Ethics Regime says, codes of ethics in the public sector are intended to promote integrity in public affairs and to provide guides for acceptable behavior. They actually provide standards and they provide prohibitions. My view, though, as I'll tell you, a code of conduct is not an encyclopedia. You can't look it up and find every particular instance in which it may apply. It sets out, as I've indicated, standards and it sets out prohibitions. Standards of conduct that you're supposed to adhere to, and prohibitions, things that you're not required, you're not supposed to do. So that's what a code typically says, and it tries to maintain a high level of integrity in order to protect the public reputation and public confidence in the conduct of elected and appointed officials at the local level. There are 4 prescribed subject matters. The Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing has reserved onto himself the ability to prescribe specific subject matters, and there's 4 of them in this regulation. Gifts, benefits, and hospitality, respectful conduct, and notice that it doesn't end right there. It doesn't say respectful conduct, period, which would mean respectful conduct towards whom? Yourselves, towards your colleagues as members of council, towards the public, towards any consultants, deputants, and staff. The province thought it fit to add, including conduct towards officers and employees of the municipality. Why? Because there's a power imbalance, and that's been very clearly made out by the Ontario Divisional Court in a case called Villeneuve versus North Stormont, where it said there is a power imbalance between members of council and members of staff. Their roles and responsibilities must be respected. You have a council staff relation policy. It's mandated under Section 270 of the Municipal Act. What does it say? It says the role of council is this. The role of council is to govern. The role of staff is this: to manage and take care of the day-to-day operations of the municipality. And it says each should stay in its own lane. So council does not weigh into the operations and management of the municipality, and clearly staff do not weigh in on the governance. That's council's decisions to make at the high level, policy, program implementations. Those are council's decisions to make. And your one employee is your CAO. When you have a CAO, and you do, Rebecca's your CAO. When you have a CAO, what does Section 229 of the Municipal Act imbue them with? The CAO is the responsible person for the effective and efficient management and operations of the municipality. That essentially means that council has one staff member. So your dealings should be through the CAO, who will then impart it to her jurisdiction, which is the staff, because she's responsible for the effective and efficient operation and day-to-day management of the municipality. Third is confidential information. And as you know, you receive confidential information because you are members of council, information that other persons do not get. Some of the information is imbued with privacy issues. For instance, under MFIPA, under PIPEDA, under the Personal Information of Health Protection Act, there are personal privacy information matters that you cannot disclose at law pursuant to those sections. But how else do you get confidential information? Through closed meetings, which you as members of council can call under 14 separate subject matters under Section 239 of the Municipal Act. And that information belongs to council and is not to be disclosed in any way. There's a case on point. The Ontario Divisional Court has again weighed in, basically said confidential information that council members receive at a closed meeting remains in the closed meeting. It is not to be disclosed to anyone unless council agrees to disclose it. So you as members of council have no unilateral executive powers to disclose any confidential information. Okay, that's the third one. Fourth is the use of the property of the municipality. It is to be used to discharge your public duties, not for any other purpose. Okay, so those are the four mandatory requirements of the Municipal Act. And here is your code of conduct for council and local boards, as we have created for you and as the municipality has adopted. And I've just put out the main sections. And notice in red are a number of provisions, and I've highlighted them in red because the four ones that are set out in red on this page, numbers 5, 6, 7, and 8, relate back to the mandatory subject matters that must be covered in a code. And you have them covered in your code. You also have a number of other provisions, as you'll see. The one that gets a lot of notoriety these days is harassment, again, related to your conduct towards staff, right? And then you'll see that there are additional provisions. There's improper use of influence, when you use the influence of your office for things that are not related to the discharge of your public duty. Conflicts of interest, which are separate and distinct from the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, which deals with financial interest. But a council, a municipality, can regulate private or personal conflicts of a non-pecuniary nature, and you do so. There are provisions dealing with council policies and procedures, which basically said all council members have to adhere to the policies and procedures that are put in place by the municipality from time to time. As you know, municipal elections are governed by the Municipal Elections Act, but that doesn't mean that ethical matters dealing with election activity can't be covered in a code of conduct, and yours is. There's dealings with communications and media relations, and ultimately a respect for the code of conduct, which is something that we've added in because we found that while councils pass codes of conduct, council members don't often respect what's in their own adopted codes of conduct. you'll see sections 16 and 17 talk about what happens if a member may have breached a code of conduct. And there are penalties. There are two. There's a suspension of pay for up to 90 days for the most egregious types of complaints. And there's a reprimand. And there's also something that aren't penalties, but that the courts have sanctioned. And those are remedial measures or corrective actions. These are things that could be put in place by council that do not create a punitive measure on a member of council. They're put in place to remediate, to repair, to rectify, or to prevent further instances of a breach of a code of conduct. That would include potentially something like the removal of a member from a committee, or as the chair of a committee, or a requirement that the member apologize. Those are not penalties. Those are remedial measures or corrective actions. And then finally, at the very bottom, you'll see complaint protocol, because as an adjunct to your code of conduct, there is a complaint procedure which sets out or purports to set out a fair, equitable, balanced way in which investigations shall be treated. By the way, if you'd like to know, there have been 2 complaints filed against various members of council. They were filed in 2023, and in both instances, the complaints were summarily dismissed. That meant that we decided, either right at the forefront or while we were conducting the inquiry, that the complaints did not have sufficient merit to warrant a full investigation, and therefore we terminated them on a summary basis, which integrity commissioners are entitled to do. And if you look at our complaint protocol, it sets out that rule so that the public is aware of that. So that's it for the code of conduct in a very quick nutshell. I just very quickly want to talk about the role of the integrity commissioner. And the role of the integrity commissioner, actually the genesis of why you have this office now set out in the Municipal Act, arises from the Public Inquiry Commission in the City of Toronto in the early 2000s. Madam Justice Denise Bellamy acted as the public inquiry commissioner, and she looked at the federal government and the provincial government, and she said an effective integrity commissioner system provides 2 basic services. The first is advisory, where members can receive advice directly from the integrity commissioner that will seek to prevent breaches of the code of conduct or other ethical policies, right? And actually, I should say, the integrity commissioner has an investigative or enforcement arm, which means that allegations of wrongdoing can be investigated and looked after. So those are the 2 basic functions of the integrity commissioner. The integrity commissioner, like a code of conduct, is mandatory. He or she, or it, in your case, because Airden Burles is your integrity commissioner, is a statutory officer, and we report directly to council. We do not report to the head of council, we do not report to the CAO, and we do not report to any individual member of council. We report to council as a whole. And we exercise our functions independently. Let me say that again. We exercise our functions independently. We do not are told by council how to conduct an investigation or whether to conduct an investigation or not. Council can request us to conduct an investigation, but we have to make an independent determination whether we will. But council can't tell us, don't investigate. What kind of accountability system would that be, right? The functions that are assigned under the Municipal Act, and I'll show them to you in just a moment, can be assigned by council. And they essentially relate to these things. The integrity commissioner can advise council members or members of local boards. We can educate members of council and local boards, like I'm doing right now, giving you a bit of a presentation on this. We can investigate complaints and conduct inquiries. We can adjudicate the complaints. We can investigate, make determinations, and then we can recommend penalties or remedial measures and corrective actions. I'm now going to show you what the actual provisions of the functions of the integrity commissioner are in the Municipal Act. I want to show them to you. And here they are. They're in subsection 1 of section 223.3. They're set out in 7 separate paragraphs. Notice that some of the paragraphs and some of the language here is set out in red. Those are the new functions of the Integrity Commissioner. Initially, the functions of the Integrity Commissioner were only to investigate. That was it. It was a pretty scoped jurisdiction. As you can see, there's been some additions. Sections 1 and 2 were always primarily there from the beginning. But look at number 3, the application of 4 sections of the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. The Integrity Commissioner actually has a role in the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, which was never the case when Integrity Commissioners were first proposed. Now look at the next 4 paragraphs. They're all entirely new. Numbers 4, 5, and 6 relate to the ability of members of council to make specific requests to the Integrity Commissioner to provide advice. And number 7 relates to the provision of educational information, not only to members of council, but to council as a whole, to members of local boards, to the municipality, which I've taken to mean also to staff, and to members of the public. And that's new. It used to be educational advice or instruction only to council. In addition, there is a case that's on point. It's called Kresch versus Hamilton, where the court said, the Ontario Divisional Court again said, if a municipality would like to assign other functions to the Integrity Commissioner, council is authorized to do so and can do so under its broad authority powers under its governance scheme in sections 10 and 11 of the Municipal Act. So Integrity Commissioners are not bound to only do these 7 things. And in fact, we have been asked by many municipalities to do other things beyond just these things in order to help the municipality. For instance, be able to conduct an investigation of a breach of an employee code of conduct or a building official's code of conduct, which, if you didn't know, is actually in the Building Code Act, where you have to have a code of conduct to deal with building officials and inspectors. So I want to talk to you about the unheralded advent that came with the 2018 amendments. Municipalities now have a person, the Integrity Commissioner, who can give specific advice to members with respect to the code of conduct, any ethical policies, guidelines, or procedures, and the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. We are allowed now as Integrity Commissioners expressly to provide you with specific, particularized advice, not just general advice to council, but advice to members of council on their specific circumstances and factual background. There are a couple of requirements. First of all, the request must be in writing, and the advice that the Integrity Commissioner gives must be in writing. You can understand why this is there. If you just say something orally, it may lose something in translation. So the member is required to put the request in writing, and the Integrity Commissioner is required to answer in writing. So, and by the way, a request for advice is not, hey, John, can I speak to you tomorrow at 3 p.m.? No, the request for advice, as I've said at the bottom, 2 conditions. You must set out all relevant facts. Now, you may not know what all relevant facts are, and that's fine. And we'll come back and try to help you to clarify. We'll often ask additional questions. But you have to put the request in writing, okay? And please include all relevant facts and any staff reports, agreements, bylaws, resolutions, contracts that you may believe it's necessary for us to look at. And it's so much easier if you can give us that instead of us going and searching for it, because there's a cost to the municipality in us doing so. Now, what's also important is, and we've built this into your complaint protocol, is you are entitled to rely upon our advice. And that's the safeguard here. If you ask us for advice and we give you advice, you're entitled to rely on it. And what happens if someone files a complaint on something that we've given you advice and you've actually followed it? We will refuse to go and investigate that because we've given you the advice, and if you followed it, that's the end of the story. Now, admittedly, we could have given you bad advice. That's not your fault. And that's the safeguard in the system where you can ask us for advice and we will give you advice in writing that you can rely upon. Finally, my last point on the slide is very important. Any member can come to us and ask us for advice about their obligations under the Code of Conduct, any ethical policy of the municipality, for instance, the council staff relation policy, or the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. What a member can't do is ask us about someone else's obligations. We will not give advice on someone else's obligations. And if you read the statute, it's very clear. A member may ask about their own obligations, not about another person's obligations. Okay? So please, if you're going to write to us, please put it in writing. An email will suffice. I'm the advice giver, and I do that on purpose. I'm the person who's been giving the advice the longest, and I know this. And I've probably given the advice in one way or another, probably before. So I probably am familiar with what you may be asking. We typically have set a standard for response time. 24 to 48 hours, we will get you a response. If we can't, we will let you know. And on some very complex matters, we have had to go back to members of council to ask for some additional time. But we will try to get back to you within 24 to 48 hours with a response and an explanation why we're giving you that particular advice. Okay? So, and I appreciate it because sometimes you get your agenda on a Thursday or a Friday, and then you need to know for the Monday. And we're well equipped in order to give you that advice. Okay. And then what about our investigative powers? We can only investigate if council has asked us to do so and we'll consider it, or if a formal complaint comes in. And as I said, the complaint protocol typically sets out the fair process that an integrity commissioner is supposed to provide. Do we have broad investigative powers? You betcha. Just take a look at this. If someone refuses to answer questions or to produce documents, we can constitute ourselves as a public inquiry commissioner, and we can summons and subpoena persons and advice if they don't want to provide it to us. We can also come and ask the municipality. Look at subsection 4 here. The commissioner is entitled to have free access to anything that the municipality has in their records. And that includes closed meeting confidential information. Okay, very broad powers. We also have investigative obligations. Everything that we do is under a code of silence. It's it's confidential. That's what section 223.5 sub 1 sets out. Everything that we do, including when you give us information in order to give you advice, that is all confidential. So don't expect that it's going to be leaked out. We won't leak it out. You are allowed to disclose the advice, but that's at your instance, okay? We can disclose confidential information in a couple of specific instances. One of them is if there's a criminal investigation and the police authorities are asking us about it. That's right on the page. And by the way, if you believe or if you think that someone can just file an FOI request, say, oh, you have this information, it's in the care or the custody or control of the municipality, that's wrong, because the confidentiality provision in this section prevails over the Municipal Freedom of Information Act. So no one can file an FOI request to get that information. Investigative authority, I put out 3 cases. I won't speak to them at any great degree. Just let me tell you, the courts have said the integrity commissioner is the master of their own procedure, has significant autonomy in which to carry out an investigation, and is not required to disclose each and every detail of things that the integrity commissioner does. So what happens when a report comes to council and council is considering a report in the integrity commissioner? Look at what the divisional court said in Astley versus Hawkesbury, if the integrity commissioner concludes that a council member has contravened the code of conduct, the municipality has no power to contest or question that conclusion. Why? Because the municipality has engaged, appointed, retained an expert, independent, neutral, impartial, objective person, the integrity commissioner, who will conduct the investigation. The role of the integrity commissioner is to conduct the investigation, make findings that are conclusive. So council has no authority to question the integrity commissioner on why didn't you investigate this? Why didn't you go and interview that person? Why didn't you look at that video camera evidence? That is for the integrity commissioner only to make. And I'm very proud of this particular statement because I represented the integrity commissioner in this case against Mayor Astley, and the court actually borrowed from my factum in order to put this paragraph at paragraph 11 of the decision. So I'm very, very proud of that because it distills the law down to its essence. That's recently been cited and applied in a case called Jonker versus West Lincoln that just came out a couple of months ago, where the divisional court said the exact same thing. Council has no power to question the findings of the integrity commissioner. So does a member who's under investigation have a right to appeal? The answer is no. There is no right to appeal in the Municipal Act. However, the decision of a council in imposing any recommendations, any penalties, or remedial measures from an integrity commissioner's investigation can be judicially reviewed by the court under the Judicial Review Procedures Act. Please don't make this mistake. It is not an appeal. An appeal would say the person who you're appealing to would look to see if a correct decision at law was made. That is not at all what the divisional court looks at in a judicial review application. What the court looks at is, did the integrity commissioner conduct a fair investigation? And two, was the integrity commissioner's decision, findings, recommendations reasonable? And were council's imposition of any penalties or remedial measures reasonable? That is a very different standard than a correctness standard. A reasonable standard just means that you have to be reasonable. Finally, if someone doesn't want to file a court application, an integrity commissioner's investigation can be reviewed by the Ontario Ombudsman under Section 14 of the Ombudsman's Act. And all the ombudsman will do is review the matter to see if the integrity commissioner carried out a fair investigation. The ombudsman's report cannot overturn any investigation or any decision that council made. So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, my conclusions are: all members of council and local boards are subject to a code of conduct, and there's 4 mandatory subject matters. Kudos to you. You have a very good code of conduct that has been in place now for several years. I believe we've upgraded it and made some changes to make it a little more modern. I've taken a look at it recently, and it looks very good to me. It covers off the 4 main subject matters. Integrity commissioners have broad authority to investigate complaints and look at the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act as well to see if you've breached that, and also the unheralded benefit to provide specific advice to you before you act in order to prevent any contraventions. So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, that is the end of my presentation proper. I've gone a little long and I apologize for that, but I'm going to stop sharing my screen now so I can open the floor if you, Mr. Mayor, or members of council have any questions for me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mascarin. Well done. Are there any questions? Councillor Neeb, I see your hand going up. Go ahead.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Mascarin, for the presentation. One of the upgrades that we made to our code of conduct within the last 2 years was social media and activities of council on and council members and local boards on social media. And I'm just wondering, is there any examples of any cases of council members being investigated due to activities on social media or online?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, sorry, it was Councillor Neeb?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Councillor Neeb, great question. Yes, there's been several. In fact, there's a couple that are are under judicial review right now. There's a matter in Chatham-Kent where a member posted some what I would call rather vitriolic comments that were disparaging of a number of groups. That was investigated by the Integrity Commissioner, and the Integrity Commissioner determined that the member had significantly breached the code of conduct by posting those comments, those statements, those postings on social media. The member has brought a judicial review application, and that will be heard by the courts, I believe, coming up in September or October of this year. So we're going to get some more clarification. There's been a whole host of other Integrity Commissioner investigations on matters where council members have posted matters, whether on their official council endorsed social media handles, whether it's X or Facebook or whatever, and also on their personal private pages, because there's often a mixture of the personal with the public, where a council member perhaps on Facebook or on X indicates the first thing on their handle is, I'm a member of council at this municipality, and then they post about things that are happening at the municipality. So I always say to members, something that's personal should stay exclusively personal and not mix the public. So there have been a number of instances across the province where there's been investigations on social media complaints that members have posted very bad things on social media, and those are just statements as if they would be published in the regular media or statements made live viva voce at any time. So social media is typically treated just like a statement that could be subject to defamation, for instance, a civil suit, or a breach of a code of conduct. So there's been many throughout the whole province.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments from members of council? Not seeing. Great presentation, Mr. Masker. I really appreciate your time, and we're very fortunate to have you as our Integrity Commissioner.
Well, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. I think I'm very fortunate to be able to represent my firm for your municipality, and I've enjoyed helping the municipality. By the way, I'm sorry, Ms. Wolf did ask me if I could tell you how many times there were requests for advice at your municipality. I actually pulled the information. I wasn't sure that I could find it, but I've been asked 5 separate times for advice, specific advice from various members of council, and one time also from your CAO, who needed some advice, I believe, on an issue dealing with quorum at council. So we have given specific advice to members of council. And I must say, those are relatively low numbers compared to many of my other municipalities. So all I can say is, I think council knows what they're doing, and they seem to be doing things right, because you haven't gotten any complaint investigations that have come back and said you're in contravention, and you seem to reach out when you need it, and which is not very frequent. So it's been working so good so far. So you have a very clean ethical report card, Mr. Mayor.
That's always good news for the municipality to hear that. Thank you very much. We appreciate everything you do.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Good evening.
Have a good night. Ms. Masuda Carlson.
The South Huron Council receives the Airden Bearless LLP presentation regarding Integrity Commissioner and Code of Conduct as presented by John Mascarin.
And I move her, please. Moved by Councillor Neeb, second by Councillor Vaughn. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? That carries with 6. Thank you. And we'll go into our delegations now, and we welcome Danielle Zaire from the South Huron Soccer. And I believe we have 13 members of the 15 members of soccer teams out here today in the gallery. Great to see, and their coaches. Please proceed whenever you're ready, and look forward to your presentation.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor and members of council. I appreciate your time tonight and listening to what I'm going to present to you. My name is Danielle Zaire, and I am the previous vice president of the South Huron Soccer Club and the current in-house coordinator. South Huron Soccer Club has been providing opportunities for youth to play soccer through the past years and onward into the present. Last year, our participant numbers were over 200 and this year's numbers exceeding 300 while continuing to grow. Our club offers multiple levels of soccer to our community, ranging from in-house to Tier 1 competitive teams, allowing for inclusion of all skill levels and all youth to be involved. We, as an executive committee, have contributed substantial manpower and resources in order to provide quality programming here in South Huron. This is including but not limited to becoming a nonprofit corporation, utilizing all spaces available through the community, connecting with other clubs to ensure that all participants have a place to play, applying to multiple provincial grants, and partnering with both local and corporate businesses for sponsorship agreements and grant programs, including Timbit Soccer. Additionally, South Huron Soccer Club purchases new nets, pays municipality for grass cutting, weekly lining of the fields, and insurance for all players to ensure the best possible experience for each youth on the field. All of these efforts have ensured successful seasons for all participants while maintaining a low cost to the participants' families themselves. We, South Huron Soccer, are asking the council to create a long-term plan to ensure the availability of fields either at Wagner's Fields or other municipal lands for years to come. As of 2011, the demographic study revealed that South Huron's second largest population is children under the age of 14. Our most recent study indicated that South Huron is anticipated to have the largest growth across the county, with county growth rates projected to be an annual growth rate of 1.1%. Into the year 2051. With enrollments at Exeter Elementary also on the rise, the conclusion can be made that youth under 14 will continue to grow as well. We have also seen this within our own club. Currently, our in-house league, ages 3 to 8, independently hosts 24 teams alone while maintaining a wait list due to all teams reaching their maximum capacity. While Wagner's Fields is predominantly used for recreational soccer, it would be unjust to not acknowledge the pivotal green space it offers to our community as a whole. This space is frequently used by multiple demographics for walking and activities, specifically providing a safe space for our children to utilize. This past March, the provincial government announced their plan to invest $200 million over the next 3 years to support recreational infrastructure. With this additional support, the opportunity of creating a long-term and permanent recreational space is one that we just cannot ignore. We believe that the time is now to work alongside with you, our municipality, to develop this plan and ensure the continuation of soccer and other recreational programs for many years to come. Additionally, our board has created a fundraising campaign that will be released later this month. We offer additional employment and volunteer opportunities for many youth within our community and are looking forward to applying for several grants in this year's season. Thank you.
Excellent presentation, Danielle. Very, very well done. Congratulations. Any questions from members of council? Just a question, what would be the draw? Like, where do you draw from? Do you draw from Blue Water, Lambton Shores, or where?
A great question. So because we work with a lot of other soccer clubs within the area, we pull from a significant amount, St. Mary's, Lambton, all those places, depending on the team's needs. So if we are unable to fill a roster in order to support a U15 boys team, we're able to reach out to other clubs and ask them if they're able to fill that and send our boys there, and vice versa. We've received some players from other leagues who can't support a team of their own, and we combine in order to make sure those participants are able to have that year.
Great. Any other questions, Councillor Vaughn?
Yes, Danielle, you did mention in your presentation that you have a wait list due to all teams reaching their maximum capacity. And so I just would like to know how many individuals happen to be on your wait list.
We're really happy to be able to report that our wait list numbers are in the single digits because of the ability of wonderful volunteers within our community who have stepped up to coach additional teams. The wait lists are often able to be filled when people are no longer able to commit to the team for the year based on scheduling conflicts.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Not seeing any. Great presentation, Danielle. Very well done, and glad to see 15 players here. That's awesome, and their coaches. That's a testament to the dedication of the soccer in South Huron for sure. And we're very proud of all you do for sure. There won't be any decisions made tonight on what your request is, but it comes back to the next council meeting to decide what we can do if there's anything we can do. But thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Masuk Olson, please.
That South Huron Council receives the delegation regarding South Huron soccer as presented by Danielle Zaire.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor McLeod Haggett. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? That carries with 6. Thank you. Next, item 5.2, we welcome Krista McCann, Jimmy True, and Rob Tate for the Huron Health System. Thank you very much, soccer players. Good to see you. Welcome, Krista. How are you?
I must have been wearing the wrong uniform for
You
them.
must have been, yeah. You're still welcome, though.
Feel underrepresented. Mr. Mayor, thank you for having us. Council members, thank you for having us again. As you know, this is our third time standing in front of you, so thank you for having us back again. We enjoy the opportunity to bring you into our loop and keep you on board with where we're heading. The first time that we were in front of you, we didn't really have a specific ask other than kind of a, hey, be prepared, we're coming with an ask. The second time we were in front of you, our ask was to form a committee of council. And with more education on our part and without really fully realizing what a committee of council actually meant for you guys, we learned that perhaps that was maybe not the right approach, a committee of council. And we want to say that we do appreciate what you invested into that request because you ended up hiring ARIA consultants. You looked into what other municipalities were doing. They created a report that really educated us and helped us. And while you were doing that work on your end, we continued the work on our end to go to different municipalities and go to different medical centers and find out what do other towns do? What are they doing? And so we were able to reconvene with Rebecca and, you know, with our hospital board and our foundation board to really look at the topic of our medical center. So what is the future of our medical center? What do we do? And so from your research, from our research, we came up with the final decision that the foundation would go ahead and proceed with the build of a medical center. So we haven't fully publicized that yet. We plan to at our gala on Friday, but it's baby steps that we're taking towards that. We wanted to make sure, first of all, that that was the right answer for this community, that it was the right answer for our foundation, because we have a lot of due diligence when it comes to, you know, how we utilize our time, because our focus is the hospitals. So we wanted to make sure, first and foremost, that if we were to invest in the build of a new medical center, that it was going to first serve the hospital. And then, of course, secondly, most importantly, that it would serve the growing needs of this community. So then the question is, how do we do that? And we've known all along that we don't want to do it alone and we can't do it alone. We just don't have the expertise and the knowledge. So while we were on the right track with the committee of council, it was maybe we were calling it the wrong thing. So what we realized that we needed was a community committee. And that's the approach that we've decided to take for figuring out, what does a medical center look like? What should it include? Where should it be located? You know, all of these questions that are going to come up as we're moving along. And so our ask of you this evening, our official ask this evening, is to help us with the formation of our steering committee. We do have our steering committee formed, but we would like to ask council that you delegate or assign, I'm not sure what the right word, Rebecca Sweet-Collison as a staff member to our steering committee. She has been incredibly helpful so far in providing advice, but the reason that we're specifically going after a staff member is just because of their operational knowledge and connection. Secondary to that request would be if you would consider appointing another staff member. We were thinking someone from maybe the building department or planning department to our project management and construction committee. And then lastly, we would happily welcome if any council members wanted to join. We're going to have 3 committees. So there's going to be a project planning committee or project and construction committee, communications and campaign committee, and then a clinical advisory committee. So the clinical advisory committee would be one where, you know, the physicians or perhaps employees of the hospital who know what needs to be in a clinical environment. So they would sit on that particular committee, but we welcome general public and council members. We haven't quite formed those 3 subcommittees yet, but we are starting with the steering committee and one step at a time to make sure that we do this right.
Great, great presentation. Anything further?
No.
Oh, okay, thank you. Questions for Krista? Councilor Neave, you have something?
Just more of a statement. I think it's exciting and necessary that we're going down this path. I think it's be positive for the community down the road. We need a medical center for the long-term sustainability of our community. And also it complements our hospital as well. And we know the importance of both of those to our community. So kudos. And I think it's a fantastic idea if we can look at having some staff sit on the community on these committees. We've got great staff members with great institutional knowledge that can provide a little bit of a conduit between what we're doing here and what you guys are doing there. So I think it's a positive relationship. So thank you for bringing this request forward. I think it's I'm looking forward to the road ahead.
Thank you very much, Krista. I think you've nailed, Rebecca's just a champion on community projects, and you have a great working relationship with her already. And of course, I'll have to come back to council next council meeting to decide what we're going to do. But no, it was a great presentation and great information in your report. Any other questions? Councillor Vaughn, go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you, Krista, for your presentation. I'm just wanting to make sure I got things correct here. So for the asks that you've made tonight, Rebecca is one you were looking for to join the steering committee?
That's correct. Yes, specifically the steering committee. In that case, that person would attend. So the steering committee would make all final recommendations to the ultimate decision maker will end up being the foundation board of directors, because we will be the one assuming all the finance and the risk. But that steering committee would be basically the parent committee of the 3 subcommittees. Yes.
Okay. And the ask for someone potentially from the building department, the project management and construction committee. And did you have a specific role? Was that to be like advisory, or how was that?
Yeah, I would say advisory, because there's going to be so many different things in terms of building code, in terms of parking that would come up, and we do have access to Rebecca, but there will be times when that project committee meets without the steering committee. So I just thought it might be helpful if somebody with that kind of knowledge would be able to sit on that committee.
Right. Okay. And then potentially for council members, it was the campaign, communications and finance committee?
That would be a very fitting committee. However, if there's council members who have specific expertise in any other area, or they have an interest in, the clinical side and how that we would love to hear from people. You guys are council members are well connected, and it's always great to have a council member's support and voice. And yeah.
Okay. And so I just want to carry on with one more. So in looking through all of the terms of reference, and I think this is great what you've put out here. So I wish all the success moving forward. But each one of these committees, I think, has a section 10 called confidentiality, and stating that all members of the steering committee are expected to meet. I'm just using the steering committee for ease, if you will,
Mhm.
are expected to maintain confidentiality regarding all discussions, documents, and proceedings unless otherwise agreed upon by the committee. And that seemed to be repeated in each one of the committees. And so that was a bit of took me aback a bit because the municipality prides itself on being open
Mhm.
in their meetings and transparent to the public in terms of items that are being discussed. So I'm just, we haven't had a chance to talk about it, and I'm sure we will over the next couple of weeks. But I would just tell you now that I'm a little bit concerned how members of staff and members of council could participate on any kind of committee where they were bound to be confidential to that committee when they already have an obligation to this council
Understood.
and the municipality.
Yeah, understood. So two responses for you. The first one, these haven't been passed yet by our governance committee. That's number one. So that's definitely something that I'll take back to our governance lawyers just to get their insight on that. It's more just there may be things that you come across in our committee meetings that ought not to be spoken about. Being transparent is, I would say, different than holding confidence. So you can be transparent while also holding confidence, if that makes any sense. So it's more or less, hey, we're not going to go blurt out what we heard, this, and this, and this, and make it a topic of discussion. But everything that the foundation does is also held in public minutes. So it would be, all of these things would be minuted and accessible by the public. So I suppose that's more or less referring to if you happen to attend a meeting and we discuss, the physician's agreement. That's not something that's confidential information. So we would note this is a piece of confidential information that would go to an in-camera session. So
Right. And just from a municipality's perspective,
mhm.
it's what you just described is rather what we kind of adhere to in that we have specific things that we would likely call for confidentiality and go into a closed type of session, like talking about an identifiable individual.
Yes.
That you just gave that example. Another one might be acquisition of land
Yes.
or a particular other type of negotiation where you don't want your negotiation terms or your thinking to be public knowledge. So yeah, so those were how you were going to approach it was what was on my mind, because we basically say everything is open except for certain types of things.
Yes.
And
Same.
we reserve the right through the Municipal Act to basically call those closed type sessions.
Yes.
So yeah, I just wanted you to know what I was thinking
Makes
because
complete sense.
that's
Yeah.
on my mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Great presentation, Krista. Good to see you again, Mr. Tate and Mr. Jimmy True. We look forward to seeing what goes on, and let me be the first to congratulate you on this initiative. I think it's just incredible what you're doing, and we look forward to the success of this for sure. So
Us too. We
Oh.
think it'll bring huge value to the municipality. Just it's not a small project. We're looking at a fairly big building, about a $15 million estimated project. And we are proud and honored to be able to serve the municipality in this way. So, but we can't do it without you. So
And
thank you.
the South Huron community is behind you, and so is the region of South Huron, as we've discussed before. So we look forward to seeing this successful project completed for sure. Thank you so much for presenting tonight. It was awesome.
Thank you. I can get off my tippy toes now.
Great. Thanks again.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Masula Carlson.
That South Huron Council receives the delegation regarding medical center update as presented by Krista McCann, Jimmy True, and Rob Tate.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Neves, second by Councillor Dietrich. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? That carries with 6. Thank you. And on to item number, we go 6, no public meeting. Go to 7, please.
That South Huron Council adopts the minutes of the regular council meeting of May 21st, 2024, as printed and circulated.
And a mover, please. Moved by Counselor Oak, second by Counselor Neeb. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carries with 6. Number 8, please.
That the minutes of the following committees and or boards be received as presented to council. Committee of Adjustment draft minutes of May 21st, 2024. Upper Thames River Conservation Authority Board draft minutes of April 16th, 2024. Finance and Audit Committee draft minutes of April 16th, 2024. And Hearing Committee draft minutes of April 25th, 2024.
And a mover, please. Moved by Counselor Oak, seconded by Counselor Neeb. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carries with 6. Thank you. 8.3, please.
That the draft minutes of May 23rd, 2024 be received as presented to council, and that the South Huron Council approve the recommendation of the Dashwood Community Advisory Committee for staff to proceed with an RFP for a new accessible playground located at the northeast corner of the Dashwood Community Center property based on the Sawchuck Accessible Solutions Report for the Dashwood Community Center dated April 17th, 2024, for an upset limit of $80,000, including HST.
And a mover, please. Moved by Counselor Vaughn, second by Counselor McLeod Haggett. Counselor Vaughn, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Thank you. I would like to put something a little different, I know, on the table here. I would like to defer this motion. And I'd also like to explain a little bit about why I'm asking for that deferral. Yeah, so we have asked as a advisory committee for a specific location in terms of putting this this playground. And we have very recently received information from Hydro about locates, which basically, if I were to draw a visual line, it goes right through kind of the area that we were envisioning we would put the playground. So it's a kind of a fly in the ointment right off the bat. So it, to me, doesn't make a lot of sense to go forward with this motion at this time. I would like to defer the motion and request that staff investigate with Hydro what other hydro line placement options we may investigate and bring back to council before actually proceeding with this motion.
Okay, thank you. I know this can't be debated, but Mr. Sewell Colson, please go ahead.
Could I also maybe suggest a split? So just so that we can receive the minutes and then maybe just defer the second piece if that's council's wish.
That would be fine by me to split it.
Okay, so Madam Clerk, did you want to read the motion first?
That the draft minutes of the May 23rd, 2024 Dashwood Community Advisory Committee meeting be received as presented to council.
And
Yeah.
that's been moved and seconded.
Yes, moved by Counselor Vaughn, seconded by Counselor McLeod Haggett.
Okay, any discussion on that motion? Call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 6. Thank you. And Madam Clerk, when you're ready.
So the second part of the motion was that the South Huron Council approve the recommendation of the Dashwood Community Advisory Committee for staff to proceed with an RFP for a new accessible playground located at the northeast corner of the Dashwood Community Center property based on the Sawchuck Accessibility Solutions Report for the Dashwood Community Center dated April 17th, 2024 for an upset limit of $80,000, including HST.
Okay, and that's still moved and seconded. Any discussion on that for defer? Go ahead.
Oh, yes, I was just going to say that's the piece I would like to defer.
Okay. Madam Clerk.
So the motion would read to defer the recommendation to be deferred to a future council meeting to provide staff time to investigate utility locations and the proposed location for the playground and bring back a report to council for consideration.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Oak, had a comment?
Yeah, just as part of the report coming back, maybe some more details on why the current location isn't a site that is available? Just, I know what Julie has in her report, but it's sort of high level. Would like to know what the cost would be to make it accessible where it currently is, or if there's even an opportunity to have it set up, if there's enough room where the proposed fire station is, whether there's a flat area there. Just thinking of outside the box, thinking of location. There might be enough room on the property where the ball diamond is to have something there. I'm just throwing out ideas that, because I don't want to cram something into an area where it doesn't maybe fit either. So just wondering if that report, whether it makes sense to have those kind of suggestions come back to council.
Councillor Vaughn, comment?
I'm thinking about it only from the perspective of it's not the second option where you were talking about potentially a completely different location on the opposite side of the street that's gonna be muddled up with our fire services thinking as I'm just we haven't brought it up at the committee. I don't really want to go there. It brings all kinds of thinking in terms of what do you do with the mums and the caretakers that are looking after the kids, and there's no shelter over there. Like it's just, I'm going to be perfectly forthright here. We spent 2 years having this discussion, and we started off with Municipality of Blue Water and the Municipality of South Huron, each forking over $30,000 in commitment to go forward with this playground, which is sorely needed right now. We spent 2 years doing that to a point where the $60,000 that we had no longer would give us a decent playground. So we've had to go back to Blue Water. We've had to go back to our own advisory community fund group and get 10,000 each to bring it up to the $80,000 mark that you see here today. Been a lot of discussion for 2 years about where to put it. Other activities that happen, notably the men's club where the tent's going to be and where it's not going to be, and so on. We did have the audit with Julie come out. Basically, you merely have to take a good look at the terrain out there on where the playground is today and on the other where they actually do the tug of war for Freesburg's Day. To get a slope that into either of those sides of the ditch, you would practically be taking a pathway into a farmer's field to get it to be a low enough slope and then bring it back to finish the low slope. So in the words of Julie, when she came out and did the audit for us, she basically indicated that there's absolutely no point in wasting your money creating a accessible playground if there's no way to accessibly get to that playground. She pointed out the very location that we're talking about in this motion and said, I don't know why you just don't go there. And so that's where we're sort of at. We were there with the advisory committee in terms of explaining all of that. Yeah. And got to this.
Thank you. So the motion is to defer it to another meeting, and the mover and the seconder satisfied with that. Okay. Is there any further discussion on deferring it? Okay, Madam Clerk, is there anything further you need? Okay, so we have a motion to defer. Is there a date we need to set for that? For the next date, or does it matter?
We will have this on our radar, but if,
Let's aim for the July council meeting back, at least then. Yep.
Sorry, can we add that to the motion and both mover and seconder are satisfied with that?
I'm perfectly satisfied if the staff is satisfied it's
Okay.
doable.
There's, okay.
So that the recommendation would be deferred to the July 15th council meeting to provide staff time to investigate utility locations and the proposed location for the playground and bring a report back for council consideration.
So moved and seconded. There's no further discussion. I'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 6. Thank you. Okay, moving on to 9, please.
That South Huron Council receives a report from Alex Wolf, clerk, Ford Municipal Drain 2024 tender, and that South Huron Council award the tender for construction of the Ford Municipal Drain 2024 to TAS Excavating and Rentals Limited for a tendered price of $70,520.35 plus non-recoverable HST.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Dietrich, seconded by Councillor McLeod Haggett. Any discussion? Councillor Oak, go ahead, please.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. Just a question on the lowest tender company. Just wondering what experience we have with them. I haven't heard of them doing work in South Huron, so just wondering what experience.
Madam Clerk.
Yeah, so as far as I'm aware, they have not necessarily dealt with South Huron for work. However, the drainage engineer did advise that he has worked with them, the company in the past, and that they've completed good work and they're a reputable company and they'd be able to get the job done this year.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder. If there's no further discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 5. Thank you. Mr. Neeb. And 9.4.2, please.
That South Huron Council receives a report of Alex Wolf, clerk, Services of an Integrity Commissioner and closed meeting investigator, and that council directs staff to prepare a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to sign an agreement between the municipality of South Huron and Airden Bearless for the provision of Integrity Commissioner and closed meeting investigator services.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Vaughn, seconded by Councillor McLeod Haggett. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? That carries with 6. Thank you. 10, any notice of motions?
There are none.
Thank you. 11, please.
That South Huron Council submit the following requests for a delegation form for the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, AMO 2024 Annual Conference.
Okay, and I believe we're looking at Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, MTO, and Infrastructure Ontario. Is that correct? Anyone have any questions or other suggestions? Okay, very well. Can we add that into the recommendation then, please? Okay, we have a mover and a seconder, or do we have a mover yet? I think we do.
No,
So
we
do you want to read that then?
Yep, so the resolution that South Huron Council submit the following requests for a delegation form for the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, AMO 2024 Annual Conference. That would be to the Ministry of Transportation, Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing and Infrastructure Ontario.
So we need a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Oak, seconded by Councillor Vaughn. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 6. Okay, new business. Is there any new business at this time? Okay, not seeing any. Mayor and Councillor comments and announcements. Are there any announcements at this time? I can announce that Thursday, June 13th, 2 to 6 at the South Huron Rec Center, there's a job fair being held in cooperation with the Chamber in South Huron, Municipality South Huron itself, and the Huron County Economic Development Board is supporting that. So we look forward to members of council if they can attend. Also, this past May 31st, I was fortunate to go to the Sunset Community Foundation Awards banquet at Ironwood, and several grants were provided to members of the public. The fund that we started in 2019, 2020, 21, 22 has been very successful. Lots of kudos. So it's takes the politics, as I say, takes the politics out of grant funding, and it's been very, very well received by the community. Any other comments? Councillor Oak.
Just a couple other activities that are happening at the rec center in the next week. The South Huron Hospital Gala is Friday night, and I'll be attending, and And also next week, the return of the rummage sale at the rec center. So raising funds for the hospital foundation as well. So.
Yeah, I'll see you at the gala. Any other members of council going to the gala? No, okay, very well. And there's nothing further. Moving on to communications, Ms. Masula Carlson.
14.1, 14.2,
Pull.
14.3, 14.4.
Okay, Councillor Neeb.
I was just wondering if we could send our congratulations to Chad. It's nice to get that correspondence and to see that congratulations specifically to him and thank him for his work. So
Yeah, do we need a resolution for that?
No, we can take care of that.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Neeb. Anyone else want anything? Paul, go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, I should have asked for 14.3.
Okay, feel free to go ahead.
Just thought I'd ask Rebecca maybe comments on that resolution.
Ms. Masula Carlson.
I can speak to the administrative monetary penalty system, but I'm wondering if maybe our director, Rolf, will be able to just provide his recommendations.
Mr. Rolf, welcome.
Good evening, Council. Good evening, Mayor. Yeah, so the administrative monetary penalty system is currently drafted within the Building Code Act, but it has not received sorry, I'm losing my thought here. They're not received. Rebecca, can you help me? Sorry.
Royal assent.
Royal assent. Thank you very much. It has not received that yet. If it does receive royal assent, then we will have the ability to provide these administrative fines through the Building Code Act itself. However, the municipality itself does not have an AMPS system in place at this point. And we really don't receive a lot of, or issue a lot of orders at this point as well. We do, the ones we do issue, we do have a lot of voluntary compliance achieved through those orders. And that's how we do like to work with our residences, even though, you know, they did start building without a permit at certain points. They do, you know, we do receive voluntary compliance with those. So I probably would not support the AMPS at this point. I don't think it's adds value to the municipality.
Okay, very well.
Thank you. That's the answer I was looking for.
Thank you. And since we were talking about healthcare earlier tonight, I wonder if 14.4, anyone would like to speak to that? Supporting our family physicians. Councillor Vaughn?
The only thought that came to my mind when I was reading this was there was a clause in the letter or in the resolution that was asking for proper compensation with immediate fee increases as being the solution that was being required to move things along. And so in terms of supporting the resolution from the South Huron, I just question, how do we know that it's this immediate fee increase that's actually going to solve the problem? I'm sure there's more than one problem.
Okay, and I just throw that out there if anyone is interested in proceeding with it, but if there's no take up on it, that's up to council. Very well. We move on to the resolution then.
That South Huron Council received communication items not otherwise dealt with.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Dietrich, seconded by Councillor Oak. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor. That carries with 6, and no closed session, therefore no report from closed session. 17.1, please.
That South Huron Council gives first, second, third, and final reading to bylaw 32/2024, being a bylaw to name members to the Exeter Business Association Board of Management and set 2024 tax rates for properties in the Exeter Business Improvement Area.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Oak, second by Councillor Neeb. Any discussion? Councillor Vaughn?
Yes, I just had a question about the actual map that's contained as a part of this bylaw. The map is talking about the existing business improvement area, and then a darker line talking about expanded business improvement area. Are we actually expanding the business improvement area with this bylaw?
Not with this bylaw. The original, it was what it says existing, but there was an expansion from a previous council. So this is not a further expansion.
Okay,
That-
that's what I had thought. That
Yeah.
we've seen this map before?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
So we have a mover and a seconder. If there's no further discussion, call a question. All in favor? That carries with 6. And 18.1, please.
That South Huron Council gives first, second, third, and final reading to bylaw number 33, 2024, being a bylaw to confirm matters addressed at the June 3rd, 2024 council meeting.
And a mover, please. Moved by Counselor Dietrich, seconded by Counselor Neeb. Any discussion? Call a question. All in favor? That carries with 6. And 19, please.
That South Huron Council hereby adjourns at 7:20 PM to meet again on June 17th, 2024 at 6 PM or at the call of the chair.
Moved by Counselor Neeb, seconded by Counselor Oak. No discussion. Call a question. All in favor? That carries.